believe me, I know your tone. I know your tone, Mike, when you're pissed about something. So
Yeah,
I
and I was just revving up before the
I
show started, folks. I'm just telling what I'm pissed about and just revving up and up. I'm just
yeah, when you're not live yet and you can't get a word in with Mike and his hands are flying around like he's half Italian and half Jewish, then then you know that Vass is pissed about something.
oh
Ladies
yeah.
and gentlemen, thank you for joining us again this week for the weekly roundtable. I am one of the co-hosts, Frank Johnson, co-founder of Liberty First Foundation. To the side right over here is Jan Reens, our resident lesbian with a conservative point of view. And we have Michael Vaz Vasquez, the dragon of the Southern Tier, New York's only independent journalist, now giving the Bronx a run for their money. And joining us now, a little late, as I might say, but he looks calm, cool, and collected. Another co-host of the Liberty First Foundation, Michael Marshall. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. So, Marshall, you came in a little late. Vass was having a nuclear meltdown just before we came live this evening. A couple of things that I don't want to make light of the situation because it is horrid, and he has every reason to be upset. Before we even start tonight, I'm gonna wipe the slate clean. I am clueless this week. I have not turned on the TV. I voluntarily turned off Twitter. I have had very, very little to do outside of reviewing Supreme Court cases and stuff coming out of the Fifth Circuit. So, as far as the daily news, as it would be, I have no idea what the hell is going on. I know some shit happened around a boat and a chair and a whole bunch of violence and a whole bunch of other silly stuff and a lot of, sparkly things to keep you distracted. But Vass, I'm going to toss it to you because I want you to explain to everybody why it was that you had your feathers in such an ire this evening.
So the big story that I'm thinking of, it just came out about 2 days ago. Most of the major news media have thrown the story under a bus. Most people really haven't heard about this. It turns out that on July 9th in Atlanta, just suburb of Atlanta, a doctor, an OBGYN, was helping a young woman, very young woman, give birth. No complications with the baby. She's a smaller woman, but no complications with the pregnancy. And the doctor, in the space of 3 hours, wound up decapitating the baby. Crushed the skull, crushed the face, crushed the neck, and decapitated the baby while it was inside the birth canal. And the news just came out about this. People are just learning about this. Part of the reason why we're just learning about this, so the doctor didn't tell the parents. The hospital didn't tell the parents.
The
only reason,
girl parents.
What's that?
This is the girls, the mother's parents.
No, I'm talking about the actual mother, the parents of the baby.
The birth mother was not informed of what happened to her child,
nor the father,
or the father.
Neither the father nor the birth mother. Neither one is being told by the hospital, by the doctor. They find out.
I just wanted to clarify that because the way you made it said when you said they didn't inform the parents made it sound like this was a minor child, a minor girl that was giving birth, and this is what happened. So I just wanted to get that cleared.
Okay, no, they're grown. They're considered adults. They're just young. And the only reason why anyone found out is the hospital, which didn't show them their baby, wrapped the baby up, reattached the head, wrapped the baby up in cloth, and sent it directly to the funeral home. Didn't tell the funeral home. The funeral home, of course, is getting the baby prepared for the funeral and unwrapped the baby and found out, oh, the baby's decapitated. The skull has been crushed. What the hell happened? So now there's a lawsuit that came out 2 days ago. The news media kind of sort of covered this more regionally, not nationally. and killed the story because it's the weekend. Then no one's supposed to talk about it. And so this is evil, and that's bad, and that's upsetting to me. Then I found out, as I did the research, find out what's going on here. A couple really simple things. This has happened in the last 12 years. I can only find records of this happening 5 times. Once in Brazil, once in Scotland, 3 times in the United States, in Kentucky, in Missouri, and now in Georgia. So the United States is leading in decapitations of babies in the mother's womb.
All right.
That,
All right.
Yeah.
Let's just backtrack a little bit and try to see if we can get any clarity on the situation.
Mhm.
You said there was a lawsuit involved with this. Now, when
Yes.
did the actual event take place?
The night of July 9th and 10th.
All right, so 9th and 10th back in July. So we're a month out.
Yep.
A month out from this. Now, was this a late term abortion gone
Nope.
wrong?
Nope. This was
All right,
this was the actual birth.
So what were the circumstances surrounding these horrific, murderous injuries to a child?
Oh, I
How
can
did
tell you.
something like this happen?
I can tell you.
Good.
More than likely, it was the forceps were used.
No. It was the shoulders. The baby's shoulders, and this is a condition. It happens amongst women. It's not uncommon, but it's infrequent. The shoulders got stuck. So instead of doing a cesarean immediately
or an episiotomy,
they spent 3 hours trying to pull the baby through the birth canal
by the head.
And then they decided to do a cesarean after 3 hours that's when they found, or the medical staff found out that the baby was detached, that they had decapitated the baby as well as crushed the baby.
Well, it's not something that you find out.
No, they opened her up, and that's how they found out.
Yeah, but upon birth, the head comes out first, unless it's a breech birth, and then you have to go in via cesarean, and you have to turn the baby to be able to come out that way.
Right.
So it's not like so what happened? Did the doctor stuff it back in?
No, they had to.
Play stupid.
The baby was still stuck. They did the cesarean and took out the main part of the body, and then the rest of the body vacated. And then they took the parts, wrapped them up wrapped them up tightly, and hid it from everybody.
All right. So the baby's head was stuck in the birth canal.
Yes.
And didn't actually leave the body.
Nope, never left the body.
All right. So because that took place, and the baby did not take a natural breath at any point, because if a baby's coming out and you get the head of the baby out and the rest of it gets stuck, the baby could breathe. You could clear the airways, and you could have the baby be breathing while it's still being delivered. And if the baby's being stuck, they perform an episiotomy, get the baby out the rest of the way. But if for the baby to have gone, so now this is a botched birth.
Massively, yes.
Horrifically botched birth.
Absolutely.
They don't inform the parents of the baby what happened as it was happening. Now, was the mother conscious through the birthing process? And did they?
Oh, no.
All right. So if they were going to do this, if they were having her undergo this for 3 hours and then decide to go into cesarean, they would have had to have knocked her the hell out. So for her to be, because the pain of childbirth is horrendous enough, but to then have to be cut open in the middle of it and have all the rest of that, they would have had to have knocked her out. For this to happen for 3 hours and for her to not say, what the hell is happening?
I imagine she did, but as a young girl, first-time parent, she may not have known, and unclear if no one seemed to be there for her or for the baby's rights.
Well, even if she doesn't know, first-time parent or anything, mother's instincts are going to tell you that something is wrong. A mother knows when something is wrong.
I would imagine, yes.
All right. And you would think if you don't have any experience with what's going on, that's more the reason for you to ask what the hell is going on.
And God only knows the answer.
If this is the 17th kid popping out of the clown car, you're probably going to be like, oh, well, this is, this is the way it is. I'm used to it by now. But if it's your first baby, you're going to ask every question under the sun while
I
this
would,
is taking place.
if she could, but again, we don't know because no
Unless
one
she
can clear.
was unable to. And if they would have known that this was going on as it was going on, I would imagine telling a woman on the birth table, by the way, you have inadvertent twins because there's two parts. And that's not something you want to say to the woman but she's conscious.
I understand, but even days later, weeks later, they never told the family.
So, but what did they tell the family upon? Because now
the parent that the baby died.
The baby comes out, so they just tell them there was a stillborn.
Baby died.
Baby didn't survive birth.
That's it. That's it. They left it at that. So you've got to cover up from the doctor. You've got to cover up from the hospital. And so that's evil. There's several levels of evil going on here.
Right. And the biggest thing of the evil is what you're going to say about the 27 versus 23 states when it comes to when is a baby considered a baby, because this was a viable child.
Yes.
With parents that wanted a child.
Yes.
And because the child was dismembered in the birth canal, there's no charges to be brought.
It's not murder. I know everyone's going to say, but this is murder. There should be homicide. It's not.
It's not homicide. It's not manslaughter. It's not murder.
No,
because they're saying because the child wasn't independent of the mother and didn't take a breath, it's not a viable human.
That's the key word. It did not take a breath. Therefore, according to the law, it doesn't have a breath. Now, mind you, United States, 1973, put through an initiative in the UN to give unborn babies rights to prevent this kind of situation, to be able to try and protect them. You see, this is why it's evil. 27 states say babies don't have rights at all, period. If you don't take a breath, you don't have a right. Why is that important? Because like in the 23 states that do say babies have rights, whether they are outside breathing or not, it's a way to protect the baby. You see, right now in Georgia, the doctor is Dr. Tracy St. Julian. She's not facing murder charges. According to Georgia law, since she's a doctor, this was a medical procedure, even though it was horrific. This is more akin to an abortion than a birth. Even though that was done, even though that she killed this life, it's not a crime. The only thing that can happen is she's going to be sued. Her malpractice insurance is going to pay this off. Her premium for malpractice is going to go up. The hospital is going to settle out of court. Their malpractice is going to go up a little bit, their insurance. They're going to pay off the parents, put a gag order on this, and walk away. No one is being informed. The other patients of the hospital and that doctor are never going to be informed. It is never going to be seen by the public. This can and may be happening again. 60% of all the decapitations that have happened that I can find at this moment in the world, 60% of them happen in the United States. Every single time, it's the same process and it's the same situation. And every one of these doctors are not liable. So they can, let's assume, and we're starting off assuming they have the best interest, that they're not doing this on purpose. There are allegations out there that I could not confirm that have said that this doctor Dr. Tracy St. Julian, has a series of medical malpractice complaints against her because she treats different types of patients in different ways. So imagine if that is correct, we have an individual who is penalizing parents and harming children with no fear of ever being prosecuted by law. And also they have to do is pay their malpractice insurance, and if the price goes up, well, they just charge more to their customers, and no one gets helped. This is evil. I did a whole video on this, and no one in the news media is touching this. No one wants to address that this is evil, and it's happening in America. And these are the only cases that I know of. No one's looking into us going, this is evil happening to babies, and no one's stopping it. Yes, that is her, Dr. Tracy St. Julian. She studied in Texas, did her residency in the United States Army. She's been practicing in Atlanta since 2005, and you can't find her malpractice complaints anywhere. I searched. I searched under her maiden name. I searched under her married name. Can't find it. This is being buried.
Well, the fact that you weren't able to, find the malpractice complaints against that, is that because they've been scrubbed, or is this something that's systemic with the entire medical community?
It's the entire medical community. It is. The records exist. No, doctors like stockbrokers, virtually every single one of them have had a malpractice suit. The fact that they have that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. There's a lot of nuisance lawsuits that occur.
Yeah, well,
It's why medical costs are so high. It's the nuisance lawsuits. But the fact that I can't find it is a problem.
I just read two different stories on this. And basically, the hospital's claiming, in its defense, that the baby died in utero and that the doctor in question, Tracy, whatever her name, has never been and wasn't an employee of the hospital. So in
That's
other words, private practice.
No, that's true, but that does not absolve. The problem for the hospital isn't that she's their employee. It's that the hospital, knew that the baby was decapitated. They worked with her in terms of wrapping up the baby, delivering it to the funeral home, and not informing anyone of this. That is complicit.
Let me finish.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm very upset about this, Mike. Go ahead.
Oh, I get it, and it is very upsetting. Okay, because this is one of the huge problems in the medical industry right now.
Yeah,
is too many things are getting covered up. And we saw that during COVID. We saw that during vaccines and numerous other things. Okay. Now the hospital is claiming that it voluntarily notified the medical examiner. Medical examiner is saying no, they did not. The medical examiner wasn't notified didn't get notification until the funeral home contacted them, the mortuary.
when I was researching this today, when I published it, I have the links in my video description. I have at least 5 different coverage news agencies covering this. And I have at least 2 to 3 of them that have said, no, the funeral home notified the ME, the medical examiner from the state.
The medical examiner is saying that the hospital never notified them.
Never did it. Nope, never did it.
That they weren't notified until the funeral home notified them.
Yes.
The family started a private autopsy prior to the medical examiner being notified.
Yes.
The medical examiner has since requested an autopsy be done by the Georgia State Bureau of Investigation.
Yes.
In looking into this, the medical examiners also requested that the Medical Review Board and Medical Licensing Board for the state of Georgia look into this doctor and also investigate the occurrences of this, what happened during this death.
Yeah.
So essentially what I'm seeing on this is that there are multiple people outside of the hospital, multiple agencies, multiple associations outside of the hospital that are going to be looking at this from a lot of different angles. The hospital claims that it is cooperating. However, and you know that they're doing this to cover their ass.
Right.
But
They're already complicit.
they are exactly. First and foremost, okay, the doctor may not be an employee of the hospital, but the hospital grants doctors or denies doctors privileges to use their facilities, okay, or to practice within their facilities. So that just because the doctor wasn't necessarily a hospital employee does not absolve the hospital from liability on this.
By the
Even
way, by the way, as far as we can tell, according to the news that's available, she's still got the right to go to that. It's the Southern
still has practice, right?
Southern Regional Medical
Medical
Center.
Center.
She still has the right to go there, still has the right to deliver babies, to do this all over again. She has the right to do this right now.
Right. And that's also what I was finding out. And now the two sources that I looked at are both out of Atlanta. Okay. The first one that I looked at was Atlanta News First.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is WSB TV, which is out of Atlanta also.
Yeah, I saw both their stories, and then there's NBC, ABC, the BBC.
Okay, People's Done thing. I mean, there's a ton of information out there, but I wanted to get local perspective.
Yeah.
Lots of times you get a better coverage going locally than you do through one of the national sources.
Yeah, I've looked at them all, but the problem is this is being covered up, and the question that everyone should be asking right now is because this cover up has been instigated and everyone's protected by their malpractice insurance, and they cannot be charged. We have to be asking the question: how many times have they done this in the past? How many times has a baby, for whatever reason, a doctor either through negligence or malicious intent has decapitated a baby or otherwise harmed a baby in utero during the process of birth, maybe because they believe in abortion, maybe because they don't like certain ethnicities, religions, the parents' political preferences, whatever their reason, and they've done this, and the hospital just says, oh, well, that was just bad procedure. The baby didn't survive. This happens, and just ignored it, and the funeral home didn't catch the difference because it wasn't as extreme as in this case. How many times is that happening in America? And everyone's like, okay, it happens, and we're covered because the only thing that will happen is medical insurance will go up.
Country. Okay.
There's so many levels of anger about this. This is so bad for women, for America, for medicine. There are so many levels of evil to this.
Well, if there's anything to come out of it at all right now, at least according to Fox 5 Clayton County Police Department is open to a full-fledged investigation into exactly what happened.
Yeah, so is Georgia State Bureau of Investigation, Atlanta Police Department. I think the county is also investigating. The coroner's doing its own investigation. Or the medical examiner, the medical licensing board's doing its own investigation. There's, and I'm sure there's agencies that I haven't even touched on that are doing their own investigations on this.
Yeah, but the evidence that we've seen so far, again, this is the third time since 2011 this has happened in America, and
that we know of.
That we know of. I searched far and wide. I can only find 5 cases in the world that I was able to find.
But again,
this. And I'm sure it's happened more. But here's the thing: they can do none of the police or state investigations. They cannot find Dr. Tracy St. Julian. Dr. Tracy St. Julian. They can't find her guilty of a crime, according to the 2022 law about unborn. Assault of an unborn, she is exempted. Even if they find out that it's malicious, she's exempted by the 2022 law. She cannot be touched. This is the Georgia Article 5, subsection 16. She can't be touched. So she's getting away with this. And the hospitals know this.
And that's, well, first off, I don't think that there should be any exemptions for anybody in a professional standing. Okay. As you know, I work on communication systems for public safety.
Mhm.
Okay. I've mentioned that a few times. One of the systems that we worked on is, and it's since been decommissioned. One of the systems that we worked on was a set of emergency phones along an interstate highway where cell coverage was bad. If we did not maintain them according to our contract and keep them up to repaired and so forth, if something happened to a motorist and they were unable to utilize that and it caused problems, delayed response, etc., we were liable for that. Okay, in our professional capacity. In our professional capacity, if we maintain a public safety communication system for a municipality, first responders, and something happens that we could have prevented from happening that delays response or causes undue injury or death, then our business is liable for that. Okay. We don't get any exemptions. I don't agree where doctors should be given exemptions. Okay. Regardless of what the factors are. I don't believe lawyers should be given exemptions. Okay. If they don't handle a case the way it should have been handled and it's uncovered in appeals or whatever, or through some other means, then that lawyer should be held fully culpable. Just like I don't agree with the qualified immunity that law enforcement has. I don't agree with qualified immunity that politicians have, elected officials have, in any way, shape, or form. Okay, if they act outside of their powers or act negligency, they should not have any type of qualified immunity, regardless of whether they had the best intentions or not. If they were negligent in their actions, and part of negligence is acting contrary to the constitutions that they have sworn towards, then there should be no immunity. The Hippocratic Oath plainly states, do no harm. Okay, and this is clearly a case where this doctor was either in way over her head and shouldn't have been handling this and should have asked for help and escalated it, or it's a case of, I mean, there is no excuse on this. Absolutely. No. I mean, and the fact that they actually tried to cover it up and that nobody was notified. Okay, if the coroner had been, or the medical examiner had been notified, then that baby would not have made it to the mortuary.
All right. Well,
it would have been kept as evidence because bodies aren't released to mortuaries until they have been processed.
All right. But
well, if you want to know why this doesn't get more coverage, because in the private chat, Mike is asking, why hasn't this gotten more coverage? Why hasn't this happened? Why that? if this were something that was happening with the, with any frequency, or the public knew that it was happening with any frequency, then there would be people out there that would demand that there would be some sort of legislative act be brought at some level in certain states, and then maybe even at a federal level, that would offer these children protections.
Yeah.
But as long as you have an abortion rights lobby
I
that
know.
refuses to acknowledge the fact that this is a human being, you're never going to have that happen. Now, because Roe v. Wade was overturned, the big misconception in the country now is that abortion is illegal. It's not. It
No.
just means that it's not a constitutionally protected right. It's still legal. You can still go do what you want to do. But if they were to turn around and bestow rights upon an unborn baby, they would say, well, at what point does the baby develop rights? Because now we've gone from, you have to take your first breath. Well, does the baby have rights just before he takes his first breath? A month before he takes his first breath? Because now it's the slippery slope in reverse. Now it's a traction slope. Now that the right to life people can start saying, now you have to start bestowing rights upon the unborn, and you have to recognize them as a full human being. And that would then turn the Roe v. Wade clock all the way back to the point of people calling for and being able to then say, we now have precedent that says why it should be illegal. Because if you turn around and you say an 8-month, a woman who's carried into 8 months, 7 months, 6 months, that baby is viable. That baby has human rights. Well, what difference does it make at 6 months versus 3 months? What difference does it make from 3 months to 3 weeks? From 3 weeks to 3 hours? It doesn't make a difference. That's why it's going to get traction, because they're afraid that it will then turn the tide and you'll have abortion outlawed rather than just not having it being a right. That's
why there's the heartbeat bills, which goes with 15 or 16 weeks, depending on the bill itself. It's either 15 weeks or 16 weeks in most cases. And there's a reason for that, and it should be. But we need to have this discussion, because I believe that if we know of this happening as many times as I have been able to find in one day of research on it, and found lots of information, it's become so prevalent, and it has been growing, that the NIH, the National Institute of Health, had to put out a paper in 2020 talking about this very same procedure and its outcome. It has become that common. It has gone from almost non-existent to infrequent, which means it's on its way to becoming common. Again, whether that's because of incompetence or because of willful action, I don't know. Let me stop for a second. Jen, I know you've had kids. I know you as a mom, as someone who's gone through this process. Am I overreacting?
Oh no, not at all. When I first saw the article, I didn't even open the article yet. I just sat there looking at the headline. How can this happen? What is going on that this would be allowed to happen? Just the headline. And then I went in and opened the article. And the reason why I said the forceps earlier was because if the head has not crowned yet, the way that they try to take the baby out is with the forceps if they're having issues. And so that's why my first thought was she kept using the forceps and pulling this baby's head, trying to get the head out. Because once you get the head out, then it's the shoulders. And it doesn't take 3 hours before you go into a cesarean to try to work the shoulders out. If there was an issue with the shoulders and they couldn't get the head and they couldn't get the shoulders out within the first hour, they would have rushed her in to have a cesarean. Something about this story doesn't add up. Just right there.
She's in labor over 10 hours.
Well, the process was over 10 hours. The actual trying to get the baby out was 3 hours. The cesarean was 2 hours. So that's 5 out of the 10. I don't know what was happening the other 5. Again, I'm going by all data. These are from the lawyers' reports, all the responses from the hospital, so forth. So I did quite a bit of research on this today, and this is the same thing. Go ahead.
The first part of it that they're not saying, when you say that you could go up with 5 hours, that would have been labor.
That's what I'm assuming.
That would have been labor.
But
I think the thing that gets me the most about this is she's still allowed to practice.
Yeah.
If there's investigations going on, this woman should not be allowed in a delivery room, period.
Not one news source. I found at least 12 different news sources, local, international, national, big and small. We're talking credible. I even was looking at the non-credible sources. I didn't use any of them in the video that I did, but I even looked for them. Not one news source, not one agency reporting on this has mentioned anything about her malpractice history, whether there are complaints or not. I did find allegations, as I said, allegations, but I can't find any source that either denies or corroborates her medical malpractice complaints. The media won't ask that question. It is critical to understand, was this an accident? Was this a crime? Is the motivation to cover this all up purely monetary, or is there something else? And at the end of the day, nobody, and Frank, you're right, because this touches on abortion, so no one wants to talk about the unborn rights, which would be the prevention of just abusing the monetary system, especially if this is malicious because of the parents' political preference, their color of skin, their religious beliefs, whatever stupid reason it could be. And that terrifies me. I don't know how many parents this is happening to. White, black, Hispanic, Asian, Republican, Democrat, progressive, libertarian. There are a billion reasons why people die in this world, and someone could be, and they may be, preying on babies right now. And the news media is too terrified of the abortion issue in 2024 to be able to talk about this. My God, this needs to be bigger news. I'm sorry.
It does. Okay. It should be leading everything right now. But of course it's not, because, and I'm going to point blank say it too, another big part of it is the race of the parents.
Oh, by the way, I should mention the doctor. News media has danced around this. Like Essence magazine doesn't mention this. Huffington Post doesn't mention. The doctor's black. Mm-hmm. So this is black on black. The mother is black. So is the doctor. So it's not racism in the classic sense. Although if you're reading headlines like from Essence magazine, where their first things they say is black mother, had this happen to her. Those are the first 2 words in their headline is black mother. They want this to be racial. This isn't a racial issue, although the consequences, the potential of this is it could be happening racially across America right now.
It could. Very easily could. Okay. And there's a ton of ramifications from this very incident and from others. Okay. And I do believe that medical professionals that act in a negligent manner should be culpable up to and including involuntary manslaughter or even murder.
I think this is murder. I would classify this as a homicide. Absolutely.
Okay.
That's me personally.
I could see it being put in as involuntary. But at the very least, it is at least third-degree murder at the very least. Okay.
Considering the damage, absolutely. It's unheard of.
Okay, which manslaughter falls into that category. And it depends on what state, how they define their laws. Because they have everything, I think goes clear down to like 5th-degree murder.
But Jen, have women, are women that you know of, have they been talking about this story? Is this something that
no, this is the first I've heard of it. Was tonight when you brought it up.
I haven't seen anybody talk about it.
That they're burying it. This story is getting, I believe it's being highly suppressed.
Now, when I did a search for it, all the leading news agencies had at least had a story on it.
Yeah, but having the story, and see, this is the problem a lot of people think. Having the story doesn't mean that story is being put in front of you.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say.
Yeah.
Most of these stories that I'm finding out there are maybe 100 words.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're extremely short.
Yeah, ABC's coverage, CBS coverage. Yeah, real short, short.
It's all going to be below the fold and back page.
Okay, and honestly, I don't think we're going to hear much more about it.
It'll be gone by Monday.
Forth. I think it will get buried.
Yeah, by Monday.
Unfortunately, and that is something that's tragic. And if this is indicative of more widespread medical issues that we have across the country. I mean, there are too many supposedly healthy people that go in for surgeries or this, that, or the other, and all of a sudden they're dead on what's supposed to be a relatively routine procedure. And of course, you always have to sign a waiver that you know that there are certain risks associated with surgery, up to and including death.
Yeah, but the baby never got to sign that. That's why we have, and that's why even in America.
Well, here's the thing. Even if you sign that paper, if death was caused by a medically negligent person, okay, in other words, it was an avoidable death, but because somebody either didn't have the training, didn't have the experience, didn't have the knowledge, was just outright incompetent or whatnot, that clause, that waiver should not be applicable. Okay. There are many unforeseen circumstances that could cause issues. Okay. And I get that and I understand that. But incompetence is not one of those things that we should be giving a pass to.
No, we're not just giving, it's not just incompetence. We're giving a pass to, and in giving a pass to incompetence and even accident, we've also encompassed malicious intent.
Right. And that's the whole thing. Okay.
We should not be the ones.
Honestly, I also believe that medical licensing boards should also be held accountable in many of these situations, okay? Because they're the ones that are supposed to be saying, hey, this person is competent, this person is qualified, this person knows what they're doing to practice medicine. Okay, and if they're allowing people that are incompetent to practice medicine, then they've got culpability on this as well.
And yet more reason why this is going to go to the wayside. They're going to put a gag order on it. They're going to settle out of court. It'll probably be $10 million. The last case like this, which was settled in December of 2022, was for 1.4 million. I think this will be more because they had younger parents involved. And I feel horrible for the father and the mother. I can't even imagine. And when you see the video of them, you see the pictures of them, they are in shock. They are bewildered. They are sad, as I imagine I would be. And I feel for them. My anger isn't at anyone else except the doctor, the hospital that allowed this to happen, that and the fact that there is the potential of so much more happening.
There's more than just that. Okay, there were people in that room.
Yeah.
Medical professionals, nurses, nurse practitioners. I mean, I don't know, but there were all kinds of medical technicians in that room.
Yeah.
Okay. And for them all not to say something, they're just as culpable. In my opinion.
Well, they might have. They would have been overruled. The doctor gets to have the final say about everything, even if they want to speak.
It doesn't matter. They should have been saying something afterwards.
That's different. Yes.
Okay. So they're just as culpable in the cover up and so forth. Okay. And if they see a doctor or somebody like that is performing negligently, okay, even though the doctor has the final say, there is nothing stopping them from leaving that room and getting somebody else, another doctor, another professional opinion.
Well, the problem with that is you're asking people to make a sacrifice larger than themselves. And as you saw what happened with all these nurses during COVID that were coming out there and complaining about they're killing people. You know, they're killing people here. They're putting people on ventilators that shouldn't be put on ventilators. They're putting infected people in with healthy people with compromised immune systems, and they're killing those people. All of those nurses got fired. They lost their jobs. They got sued. They got hit with being sued because non-disclosure agreements. They were saying they did HIPAA violations.
HIPAA violations, primary thing.
They didn't do anything. You're asking somebody to do something that is beyond the scope of human nature, and that's to put somebody else's welfare ahead of your own, and somebody else's needs ahead of your own. And a lot of people are not going to do that. And people have been trained into just going along because it's easier and it's cheaper, and you're not going to suffer the wrath if you just go along. And that's what's happening with a lot of these cases. So you're not going to have those whistleblowers that are going to come out unless they're going to come out afterward. You know, how many times you always hear about somebody, you know, after they've retired out of a field and they're no longer, you know, beholden to some contract, that they come out and they spill all the horrific things that happened while they were there. Well, why didn't you open your mouth during your tenure? Well, I have a family, and I had a pension I have to worry about, and I have this and I have that. People don't make the self-sacrifice, and it doesn't matter what is done anymore. It doesn't matter what horrors are being committed. The "I was only following orders" line is much weightier than the "I had to do the right thing" line. There's people that they try to do the right thing, they never recover from it. And we've been
the thing is
to do it that way.
Okay. The thing is, just following orders does not absolve you from responsibility.
No, it didn't work in the 1930s. Doesn't work today.
Okay.
It's
Just
a-
following orders. Okay. If you know that an order is wrong, it is your duty, it's your obligation not to follow that order. And if you do follow that order, knowing that it is wrong, then you are just as responsible as the person issuing the order.
well, at this point, we know that there should be the 27 states that don't believe that a unborn child is a human being should reevaluate that. The 23 states that do recognize that they are a human being and that they have rights, and this is to protect them from people just saying, well, it's just an extra charge on my medical insurance, to malpractice insurance. They need to go and reevaluate these laws. And I'm going to let it go at that because we've talked about it. And I'm only going to continue to keep getting upset about this, especially since the mainstream media isn't doing its damn job. And I shouldn't be one of the most vocal, most angry people about this on the internet right now. We should not be the most angry
No.
people on the internet about this right now.
And here's the other thing. You remember in the 70s and even in the 80s where we had all these investigative journalists?
Yeah.
That actually did investigative journalism.
Stossel. Yeah.
What happened to them?
They're all gone except for Stossel.
Okay. And we need that back. Okay. We need to find out what's going on in our healthcare system. We need investigative journalism doing that. We need investigative journalism finding out why shit like this happened.
They don't want to, though. They want to be able to throw their propaganda out there, tell you what to feel, tell you what to think, tell you what you should be mad at, and ignore everything else.
And that's the sad part. Okay. I mean, journalism is dead. It literally is. Journalism is dead. Thank God that we have a citizens journalism that is taking rise in this country. Otherwise, we would be completely uninformed.
Well, and with
Right.
that, I would like to go into a story
Mhm.
talking about journalism. Did anybody hear about the Andy Negro trial?
$1 million for two members of Antifa. The case was thrown out, as I recall.
Now they went through the trial, and they had Antifa was continuously. I've been following Andy and a couple of the reporters and stuff that were actually allowed in there on Twitter. The Antifa was continuously disrupting the hearing. One of the Antifa members stated, "Yes, I did this. I admit fault." They go through the trial, and the judge came out and said, "You can't sue a non-legal entity in Oregon."
What? Oh, because they're not a formal organization. Okay.
But he wasn't, even though he was suing Antifa, he was suing the two people.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you say that the two people are a non-legal entity?
Yeah, they should exist. Whether Antifa exists or not, that doesn't end the case, because it's like, as an example, you can sue the doctor, the hospital, you can sue the medical board, and if any one of those three are removed, the case doesn't end.
No, it doesn't.
Everyone else still gets sued. So Andy should have still been able to go after the two members of Antifa, whether or not the court wants to recognize Antifa. But that's stupid too, because ISIS exists. They're not a formal organization. Al Qaeda, the Taliban, they all exist. And up until Joe Biden gave the Taliban a nation and weapons, they weren't an actual organization. So to
Well,
say,
and I think the biggest thing that people forget about this case is these people beat the crap out of this man.
yeah,
More than once.
yeah, with a brick, as I recall. Yeah,
Because he was covering the riots.
in the way they didn't want him to. He was being honest.
And
without
now
a bias.
Antifa is out there calling, hallelujah, we won. Look, they can't do nothing to us. So what's that going to do to Antifa? It's going to make them worse.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, and that's another thing. In fact, our court system is getting pretty bad as well. Do you guys see that the Illinois Supreme Court finds that assault weapons bans are constitutional?
Oh, I missed that one. I didn't see that this week.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have that one
How
on my
can it be
list.
constitutional?
I have a list that I brought tonight just in case I could talk a little.
Well, you
Okay.
always can talk, Jan. Go ahead. But that's crazy. How do you make how can you ban something that shall not be infringed?
But,
Okay,
but
so-
in the article it said, oh, but police can have it and military can have it and this can have it and that can have it, just not the people.
Okay, the Illinois Supreme Court found strict assault weapons ban passed after the Highland Park shooting to be constitutional in a ruling issued Friday. The ruling came in response to a lawsuit that claimed the ban violated the Equal Protections Clause of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. The court reversed a lower ruling finding that and said the law does not violate the Equal Protections Clause. However, the Supreme Court did not comment on claims that the law also violated the Second Amendment. In its ruling, which was 4-3, Justice Elizabeth Ruckford wrote, "First, we hold the exemptions neither deny equal protection nor constitute special legislation because plaintiffs have not sufficiently alleged that they are similarly situated to or treated differently from an exempt class. Second, plaintiffs expressly waive in the circuit court that any independent claim that the restrictions impermissibly infringe the Second Amendment."
Okay.
Third,
Before you go further, let's understand something. This is a special class of people. You have to jump through governmental hoops. You need licensing and permits to be able to execute and exercise your right. By that definition, that you must take steps that someone else does not ever have. You don't have to pay not to be able to exercise your Second Amendment rights. You only pay to be able to do so. You only need regulation if you choose to exercise your rights. Therefore, they are a special class of citizen by definition. Therefore, the 14th Amendment does stand. This is stupid by its face and by its definition. That is stupid.
Mm-hmm. It is. Okay, because first off, okay, it does deny equal protection under the law. Okay, because it does exempt certain classes of people. Primarily, if I remember right, it exempts law enforcement, former law enforcement, and military. Okay. Neither of those should have any higher precedent than citizens of the United States. Okay. And because they are exempt from this particular law, that right there is a violation of equal protection. Anytime there is an exemption, regardless of whether that exemption requires that a person jump through some type of hoop, in order to receive that exemption violates equal protection because you're not protecting everyone equally.
Yeah, you can't.
Okay, and that's actually where we need to actually start fighting. Um, come to think about it, a lot of these qualified immunities, that's where we need to fight those type of cases. Okay, it is a violation of equal protection. Okay, because that person, quote unquote, gets this special privilege of qualified immunity because of their class, that is, that violates equal protection. That gives them special protection that the rest of us don't have.
Yeah. Again, on its face, by the definitions that exist legally already, the case, the ruling makes no sense. It screams partisanship on the judicial bench because that, by definition, does not make sense. Their argument is false.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and this is one of those cases that will end up eventually making it to the Supreme Court of the United States.
Oh yeah, guaranteed.
Because it is contrary to other rulings that other states have passed in other circuits. Okay, and whenever there's a controversy between various circuits, then the Supreme Court is obligated to hear that case, okay, to make a final determination on which circuit is actually right.
Yeah, sadly, that's going to take a couple more years, and I'm terrified.
At least another 2 years.
Well,
and probably longer than that. Because right now it's only at the state Supreme Court level. It hasn't even made it into the federal appellate court system yet.
Well, the good thing is this particular Supreme Court has been more open to fast tracking certain things, to taking things on a little faster and with more expediency, because they have made the landmark decisions. And now it's in their interest to say, okay, we've made a decision. Now you have a state Supreme Court or a federal appeals court or a district or whatever going in contradiction to what we just said. Or they're trying to pull apart what we just said. They're trying to sneak something through the lines. That this court, I believe, is more inclined to say, hey, listen, did you or did you not just hear what we said? And
yeah, but it still has to go through the process. It still has to go through the various courts leading up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court may fast track it after it gets past that final step, but it still has to go through those other processes first.
And in the meantime,
but it's not going to have the chance to get fast tracked at all unless we do have courts that make these decisions. So sometimes, maybe you got to think about it sometimes the decision might not be what it seems to be on face value. Sometimes you have a court that may go a certain way because they want to get it moved up. They want to get it moved up because they know if they just stick with a certain decision, it stays there, and then they have to wait for another state to make another decision, and then have to put the ball in somebody else's court. By them finding a certain way, moves the ball forward.
And that isn't the case here.
No, there's too many gun cases of this nature and others. That
isn't the case here. Okay, the Illinois Supreme Court is ruling this way, not for it to advance.
So this should be going to the Fifth Circuit Court, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. Well, that's better than if we were going to the Ninth Circuit Court, which is California. We might actually get a reason.
Well, the Ninth has made some surprisingly conservative rulings in recent years.
Not on guns. They went against. Yeah, they went with Hawaii.
The Ninth has made some surprisingly constitutional decisions as it pertains to the Second Amendment in recent years.
And
There
they've
has
made,
been a shift in the Ninth Circuit.
yeah, but they've also made some insane ones. Like I forget who
Well,
it was.
they do have their reputation to uphold.
Well, yeah,
I mean, the broken clock twice a day rule applies when it comes to the Ninth Circuit, whereas opposed to 10 years ago, there were no hands on the clock at the Ninth Circuit.
well, yeah, good
Never
point.
knew what time it was.
Good point. But I mean, if we're talking about things that make no sense, and we're talking about idiocy of these courts, if we're talking about obvious consequences that we're being told to ignore, and that it's the exact opposite. Now I know everyone's going to say, Mike, you're going to talk about Bidenomics. No, although that also is true. Did you hear about the Iran nuclear deal?
No, I can't say that I have. Unfortunately, I have not been able to pay attention to the news as much as I'd like to.
Okay, it's the summer. Most people aren't paying attention as much. They're on vacation, which is why all this stuff is happening.
Well,
now.
mine's just lack of time.
Okay, fair enough. But most people are on vacation, so you'd be amazed how much stuff they try and shove through in the summer when everyone's not paying attention.
Mhm.
So, just to remind people, as I have been saying since January of 2021, the Biden administration has been trying to get the Iran nuclear deal back on track. This is a fact. We know this. This has been well documented. And they have been bending over backwards, removing sanctions and giving all kinds of treats and goodies to Iran to try and get the Iran nuclear deal back on. Then they were almost there. And then this December 2022, the Biden administration said, the deal is dead. We're not going to deal with Iran until Iran punishes the people who were poisoning schoolgirls for the crime of learning how to read and write. That was the Biden administration. That was Joe Biden himself. The deal is dead. We're not going to talk to Iran until they stop poisoning schoolgirls. And in the subtext of that, they were also upset because Iran is providing drones that are being used by Russia in Ukraine, again, messing up the Biden-Harris administration and their proxy war with Russia. So that was in the subtext, but the upfront is they're protecting women and they want to force Iran to change. Iran never changed. They still supply drones to Russia, and they still have not punished anyone for poisoning schoolgirls, and they still are beating women with stones because their hair has been seen outside a hijab. Iran has changed nothing. But with all of that done, the Biden administration suddenly just now has come out and that we know the deal is almost done. A deal that was supposed to be dead, no one was supposed to be talking about, that wasn't moving forward, is now almost finished. The final terms, the United States, Biden is going to pay $6 billion to get 5 American prisoners returned home. We are paying for prisoners. This is something every administration previously, including the Obama administration, has said no, that we do not pay for our prisoners. Give us our people back. Biden's going to pay $6 billion that is going to be used by terrorists to increase global terror to get 6 prisoners back, and the deal is on.
All right.
But
Which
what
WNBA
they're-
team did these people play for?
What?
Which of the WNBA teams did these 6 prisoners play for?
If they were black and lesbians, they'd already be out. They're just white, presumably. I can't say for every single one of them.
No,
They're
if they
just
were
white
black
people.
and lesbians, they'd probably already be dead.
Well, that's true too. Yes.
It is Iran.
It is
with-
Iran.
The article I read, I don't remember which leftist article it was, but they said that the $6 million is coming from the money that was put on the sanctions for the oil that went
Yeah.
to 3 separate countries, that because how did they put it? Because they said that you can't hold this money for this amount of time, even though it's sanctioned money, that's where they're getting the money from.
The money's currently held in South Korea. The money is in dispute. They have to do something. That means move the money somewhere. They don't want to move it to America because then that puts us more directly into a conflict. The reason why it's in South Korea is because that's a somewhat neutral body, so it doesn't fall under American restrictions, and we'd have to give it back.
But I heard it was 3 different countries, not just South Korea.
Probably, well, we've got money in several banks all around that we control.
Well, they can't move it back to America because then Joe would have to explain why 600 million, wound up in his bank account. There is that 10% VIG for the big guy.
I wouldn't be surprised. But this is so wrong on so many levels. We're going to bring back a deal that increased global terror. We're going to be funding global terror again. We did not get anything that we asked for. We said, don't poison the girls. They don't care. They're still poisoning. We said, don't kill women for having their hair out and seen by the public. They're still doing that. We said, don't give Russia drones to kill people in Ukraine. They're still doing that. And we said, free the Americans who are illegally imprisoned simply because they don't believe the same religion that the Ayatollah does. And they didn't do that. And we are paying for prisoners. There is nothing about this that is good. And the Biden administration, just like Bidenomics, is saying, this is the best news you've ever heard. It's a rainbow and we're riding unicorns. This is fantastic. Aren't you happy? No, I am not happy. This is one of the worst international politics deal. And people are going to say, it's international politics. I don't pay attention. It's Iran. I don't care, until a terrorist shows up in a plane and tries to kill you, because there's 140 illegal terrorists in America right now, according to Mayorkas, the Department of Homeland Security. 140 terrorists are in America running around loose, and some of them may be because of Iran. I tell you, I am very upset about this. Why do they do these things on Fridays and make me so upset?
Well, it's a good thing that they do. Otherwise, we'd have a lot less to talk about here on Friday night.
Well, yeah,
we'd have to cover some actual. I don't know. We would start looking like Entertainment Network.
Well, yeah, we'd start talking about movies, and I don't care about Barbie, but
well, we can talk about hip hop.
I have another.
No.
I have another one that might interest you guys. It does relate to the 2A. It's interesting the way that they're going about this. Did you know in Maine, this goes back to colonial days, there is a law that you can't hunt on a Sunday.
Is it one of their blue laws? I know a lot of states have blue laws. You can't do XYZ on a Sunday.
Well, in the article, it stated that this went back to colonial days because the seventh day is for rest.
Right. Okay. So it's a blue law. No, I didn't know about it.
Yeah. So Maine Supreme Court is considering, quote unquote, a Second Amendment for food in challenge to the Sunday hunting ban, stating that basically it's stating that you have a right to go out and hunt on Sunday if you need to supply your food. And they want to make it a Second Amendment right.
No, okay, so they lost me with that last part. I get it. Okay,
They want to justify the law that they're going to challenge the Puritan law with, based on Second Amendment. That's what it is. They're going to say the Second Amendment supersedes an old religious law because a religious law does not apply to all American citizens, where the Second Amendment does apply to all Americans.
But there's a simpler solution: repeal the law.
Yeah,
I know no one ever wants to do that, but the simple answer is repeal the ancient law.
You can't repeal it. You have to write a new one to override it. There's no such thing as repeal.
This is stupid. It's stupid. It makes no sense. It hurts my brain. Repeal the old law.
The question is, who is actually enforcing that law in
Well,
Maine?
Yes, that's the other. That's why they're called blue
Maine
law.
Fish and Wildlife is Maine Fish and Wildlife actually going out there on Sunday and catching a guy in his deer stand and saying, no, unless you're up there praying, you got no business being out here in the woods, son.
Well, then they just violated the Sabbath as well.
Right. It would be another violation of the blue laws. You're
Because
working on a Sunday.
No, you're hunting on Sunday.
But to put someone, if someone's out there checking, that ranger who's out there that
And
Sunday,
how does the ranger find you? How does the ranger find you?
I don't know.
They're hunting
you down.
Okay.
For the ranger to write you the summons, he has to hunt you down in the woods, which means he's violating or she's violating the same law than which they're trying to enforce. You wouldn't have found me unless you hunted for me. Did you track my footsteps? Did you look for did you try to smell my scent? How did you find me? Well, I hunted you down. Well, I guess you're in violation too.
Okay. So you thought I was kidding about hip hop.
I can't stand and could care less about hip hop since 1992. Done.
You thought I was kidding about hip hop.
I would hope so.
And you're wondering how this applies.
No. But go on.
So this is on lovely Senator Gillibrand's Twitter, or X, or whatever you want to call it today. Hip hop was born 50 years ago in the Bronx. And thanks to $5 million, Senator Schumer, Rep. Bowman, and I secured for UHH Museum, the history of hip hop will be preserved and celebrated in the Bronx for generations to come.
Really? Really? First of all, it's not been 50 years of hip hop, which she's stupid to think about. It's, if anything, 45 years, not even 40 years of rap music. There's a big difference. She doesn't know the history of hip hop to start with. And it's actually rap music, not hip hop, because that's two different things. And who cares? It's a museum. Why are we wasting public money on this?
Well, why are we putting federal dollars into
this? What else
this?
do you do with public money except waste it?
Okay. This is a violation on so many levels of the Constitution. And this should have never, ever been federally funded in any way, shape, or form. I mean, you cannot show me one clause in the Constitution that would even remotely allow for this.
There's no reason why we would waste our money this way. This is such an abuse of. Well, you know what? We've had 40 years for anyone, if they wanted to open up a hip hop museum any day they wanted. A private business could have done that anytime. There are how many hip hop artists that have been successful in the Bronx or on the West Coast? P. Diddy or whatever they call themselves, Sean Combs, could come out and have opened it up if they thought it was profitable and useful. They didn't, because it makes no money and there is no purpose for it. We shouldn't be wasting our money. The government's doing something that the private sector wouldn't do because there's no need.
Well, and here we go again, supporting something that degrades women. It entices violence. It makes no sense.
Well, no. Before 1992, rap music, there was several genres. Before 1992, there were about 7 different genres of rap music. Mind you, that's back when they were calling rap music a fad. So from roughly 1980, actually I believe. Let's see. Those are the breaks. No. Before that, it was not the Two Life Crew.
Grandmaster
Grandmaster Flash.
is one of them.
It was Grandmaster Flash and Furious
Hey, man,
5.
is my man Hank? Come on, Hank, sing that song.
Yeah, that's Grandmaster Flash. Grandmaster Flash, Furious 5, Sugar Hill Gang, and they came out, and that would have been 80 or 81. Yeah, it was 80 or 81. So it's been about 4 decades. And if they thought this was profitable at all, there were 7 types of.
Hip hop
Rap music.
came out in the 70s. Okay. And it was originally known as
House music.
disco rap.
Yeah, but that's when it was good.
It was house music. Hip rap started in underground. It was part of house parties. It started in house parties in the South Bronx. And then it got into the clubs and the studios. That's about 1980. And that's when a couple of radio execs said, hey, we can make money with this. And they put it out there as a flyer. And that's when then we got Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Flash, Furious 5. Then it had 7 different types because rap used to be political as well as fun, as well as serious. There were several different types. And then in 1992, they introduced gangsta rap, which is what we have today as the only dominant and remaining form of the music, where record executives got to make 95 cents on every dollar to allow a former criminal to say things that those white executives could not say, and they're laughing to the bank to this day. Rap music after 1992 has been evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it did start in the 70s, like I said, and it was originally known as disco rap. And then it's kind of built from that.
Nobody I know had ever called it disco rap. Not one person. And I'm in the Bronx. I'm from the Bronx. Never heard that.
So let's talk about a couple of the big stories this week.
Well, before one thing real quick, just remember that while Rapper's Delight is considered the first legitimate rap hit song,
Yeah.
it was released the very same month that Rapture by Blondie was released. And that too was a rap song.
No.
Oh.
Blondie really isn't. That was just Blondie trying to figure out a market. That was just.
Yeah, I know, but Blondie is the queen of rap.
But it is considered a rap song.
It really isn't, but I like it. I liked it. It was fun. I liked it then, but it really wasn't serious. No one took it serious.
So let's talk about one of the big things in the news this week. The FBI raiding the guy's house in Utah and killing him.
Oh, that, yeah.
All sorts of the neighbors are coming out saying that what they did was murder.
Shocking.
Nothing new there. Ruby Ridge.
But they haven't done anything to Madonna, who said she was going to blow up the White House. They haven't done anything to
Kathy Griffin.
What's that dang comedian's name that had the head of Trump? Kathy Griffin. They haven't done anything to Snoop Dogg for making a song about assassinating the president. They haven't done anything. Oh, I could go on with a list.
Oh, yeah, this is a huge list.
Just remember this guy. What state did this happen with this guy?
Utah.
All right. They released his quote unquote manifesto.
Yep.
Before
really,
they
Mike?
got up in the body bag.
But we still haven't seen the manifesto from the Tennessee shooter.
Nope.
We still haven't seen Epstein's black book.
Nope. But they got time to waste on this crap.
Mm-hmm.
They can open up a museum and they can go after this guy because oh yeah, those are such real solid threats there. Come on. Come on.
Yep, the neighbor said that this guy, well, they went and got him at night, which
Of
we
course.
know that that's what they do.
Yeah, that's
He
typical.
was in bed. They knocked on the
Method.
door. They say that they put smoke bombs through the house. This guy was in bed. By the time they got inside, he had a gun. So they
No.
opened fire on him.
Wait a minute. Someone is banging on my door. They break my window. I got what looks like a fire started in my house. And then I hear my door break down. Do you think maybe I'm going to defend myself because I think someone's coming to kill me? And gee, they were.
And they didn't say how old he was, if he was an adult or if he was a child, but there's a special needs in the house.
This is so wrong, and they do the same thing for red flag when they go after someone for red flag law violations or orders. Excuse me, they do the same thing, and this is why people have been injured and killed because the manner in which they are entering the homes, the manner in which they are confronting people, makes those people who they know are armed seek to defend themselves because. If you wake me up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, I'm not thinking, hey, the police want to have a conversation with me. No, I think someone's trying to kill me or break into my home. And I'm going to, first reaction is defend my home.
Exactly.
And they know it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, guys. All of you people out there that say that come and get them type people. Right here is a clear example of what's going to end up happening.
Yeah, it's horrible because they always do the same thing. It's always 5, 6, 7 in the morning. Every time, 5, 6, 7 in the morning. No coffee. You're dead in the middle of sleep. You wake up and why is my door breaking down? It's a tactic. They do this on purpose. To kill, I believe, you do it if you're going into someone's house at 5 in the morning because you want to wake them up out of their sleep because you think that's going to make them more docile. You're looking to kill someone. That's not an attempt to bring him in. That's an attempt to kill them.
And here's the thing.
It's a method of enhancing the officer's safety.
No, it's not. It's endangering them.
Yeah, it actually is. When we had Larry Sharp on here last week.
Yeah.
He made a comment that there are 4 things the government is really good at. Okay, and one of those statements that he made was government's really good at killing a lot of people. Okay. And I want all of us to think about this. And everybody thinks that, well, I'm not going to say, let me rephrase this. We have a society now that believes government is the answer to all of our ills right now. And I want you to understand something here. The same government that you believe is the answer to all of our ills is the same government that conducted the Tuskegee experiment.
Mm-hmm.
The same government that literally let loose biological agents across San Francisco. The same government that has killed tens of thousands of people. Okay. And in many cases, a good majority of those people were no threat at all.
Ruby Ridge.
Ruby Ridge could be classified as a potential threat. I'm talking about Tuskegee,
Little Bighorn.
about the release of biological agents from the Pacific over California.
Little Bighorn. Classic.
Look bigger. I mean, there's countless of things. Radon.
Well, you can even say the nuclear bomb test because they tested all that stuff in Nevada and stuff and didn't tell anybody about the radiation.
Japanese concentration camps. They also had a German form of that, though that's not as well known. But yeah, there was German internment camps
And an Italian.
as well.
Yeah. That was on the East Coast. The German and Italians were on the East Coast instead of the West Coast, like for the Japanese. Yep.
Okay, Japanese. It's more wide known about the Japanese, but there were also German and Italian internment camps.
Listen, there's one thing that's for certain about right. I want to preface this by saying I absolutely love my country. I would die 1,000 deaths to preserve freedom and liberty in this country, not only for myself but for my fellow American and for anybody who wanted to pursue the life that would guarantee them those freedoms. But I absolutely despise, with every fiber of my being, the government that represents the country that I love. Because our government has gone hog wild, power tripping itself, expanding powers, and treating the citizenry like guinea pigs for over 100 years. The United States federal government is responsible for more atrocities that are unknown than we have gone to war with other nations for atrocities that they've committed that we do know about. If the American people really had a sense of what our government was responsible for and the deaths, the torture, the forget about the deprivation of civil rights. They did experiments in this country, government-sanctioned experiments on children with mental handicaps and physical handicaps.
Yeah.
This government has wholesale slaughtered Native Americans from one coast to the other. Now, the Native Americans, they were kind of known for slaughtering each other too.
Yeah.
A lot of that goes past on the wayside because people will say, we didn't do nothing to them that they weren't already doing to themselves. But there were tribes in America that did no such thing. And they were marched across this country, dropping by the 100 per mile.
And,
so they put on a
and that was also how the federal government pretty much portrayed its dominance was going after weaker tribes.
Right. And when we talk about, and that's known as, for those of you who might want to look it up, called the Trail of Tears. Okay. This government, the government for the people, by the people, and of the people, there's no such thing. Our founding documents were written for the people, by the people, and of the people. And we were supposed to only give our government, our legislator, enough power to represent the will of the people. For generations now, the government has taken that power, expanded upon it, and abused it. And then, in an effort to try and make the people more compliant with what they were doing, bought their cooperation. Bought their cooperation through welfare, through all the government programs that they've doled out a little bit of money that they've stolen from the people. They have used their power to regulate us into compliance and into submission by taking away the things that we have as rights and selling us back those things as licenses and as permits. And the people have continued to just suck it up and go along with it. And then when we have more of our people wind up in caskets because they should happen to go and question their school board because they don't like what the school is teaching their children, they get raided at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And then what happens? You raid me at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and I answer my door with a gun in my hand. You kill me.
Yeah.
Because I have the audacity to challenge the status quo and the powers that would be.
Well,
this shit has to change.
Well, don't leave out Frank, because people think, well, we're mentioning all these things that happened in the past. We just had Joe Biden give cluster bombs, which are illegal in 123 countries out of the 145 countries in the world. 123 of them consider this to be immoral, illegal, and a crime to even have cluster bombs. And even in the United States, the type of cluster bomb we gave to the Ukraine is illegal even in the United States itself. Yes, people, look up the regulation on that. Even what we did for the Ukraine, even in the United States, is illegal. And we are told, not only were we told that's okay because Joe Biden did it, but we were told, forget about it, because when was the last time you heard someone mention cluster bombs since the moment we gave them to them? No one's talking about it. They're actually being used right now.
Well, look at all of the shit that we do in this country that's illegal, but we still do it. We talk about this Wuhan lab. We're not supposed to be spending any money on weaponizing chemical warfare. What does everybody think gain of function is? Gain of function is chemical warfare. It's biological warfare. That shit was outlawed in the Geneva Convention, but when we can't do it on U.S. soil, but we can fund a lab in China that does it because it's not being done here. We're not allowed to torture prisoners because it's part of the Geneva Convention, but we don't do it here. But we use rendition, so we can torture people outside of our jurisdiction. We still glean the same information, but we can claim our hands are clean. This government breaks its own laws every single day it exists. Every single day it exists, and then they deny you your very rights because of a clerical error, a spelling error, a mathematical error. God forbid you forget to put something in on your taxes. You get punished, you get tortured, you get incarcerated, and in some cases you get killed because of some mistake that you can make. But our government can knowingly commit atrocities day after day after day with no accountability whatsoever, and we are not allowed to vocalize ourselves about it. And now you're going to watch. Now they're going to start with this public credit scoring bullshit. That's coming real soon, where they're going to tell you what you're allowed to say, because if you don't toe the line, they're going to take the line from you. That shit's coming too. People like us having the opportunity to sit around here and speak freely. We are the last of a dying breed. There's a million podcasts out there, and every single one of us has got a shadow ban on us at one point or another. It's only the ones that they allow to be promoted that have some sort of marketable ability behind it, that they can commercialize success on it and make money. If the money speaks louder than the message, then they'll let it go. But shows like this will never get a lot of traction because we'll always get banned because we don't say the things they want us to say.
And that's the thing. And here's the honest God's truth. Okay, yeah, we are shadow banned. And we are not presented. But honestly, and I know that people watch this after we go live, okay, and when it's up on in our group and on our page. And then watch it on our YouTube channels after the fact. But here's the deal. We can start spreading this a lot more. Okay? Besides just Frank, Michael, Jan, myself, getting this out. If we all start sharing this and sharing it and sharing it and sharing it and sharing it more and more, the word will get out. Okay? These shadow bans do happen. Okay? I'm not going to say that they don't.
Oh, yeah, they do.
But there are ways around it via the people. Okay? The people think that we have no power over corporations. Well, we just proved that wrong with Bud Light. Okay?
True.
People believe that we have no power over government. Well, we've proved that wrong many times. Most importantly, during the Revolutionary War. We are brainwashed into thinking that. Okay? But the truth is, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc., would be nothing without us. And I don't care what type of algorithms they put in place. I don't care what type of bans, blocks, whatever they try to put in. Short of shutting down our channels on their platforms, there is ways to get around these. And the thing is, yeah, I can't do it by myself. Frank can't do it. Michael can't do it. Jan can't do it. But guess what? If 5 people watching us, okay, or the 2 or 3 people that I see in the chat every week share this to, say, 5 people, if it's 3, that's 15 views that we wouldn't have got. Okay. And if you urge others to share it as well, we can get this message out. We ultimately have the power. It's whether or not we decide that we want to wield that power. And I don't care what corporation you're talking about. I don't care what government agency, what a government entity you're talking about. When it comes down to it, when we pull together as Americans, we can literally bring the largest corporation to its knees. We can topple governments that are acting against our interests. Okay? But it's up to us. Individually, we are nothing. United, we are everything.
True. There's something that you guys can do if you find us on the YouTube channel or something like that. One of the things that we enable on our YouTube channel is we allow people to sample the channel. You can go to the channel and you can isolate a part of our show. If there's a segment that you like or something that somebody says that you like, and you want to help us get the message out. I know a lot of people don't want to sit around and watch with the 4 of us or 5 of us, however many sit around here on week to week, talk for 2 or 3 hours. You can go to the show. You can go to the website, the YouTube channel, and download a snippet of the show. Turn it into a little bit of a,
Sure.
a little YouTube short video or an Instagram short video, and you can post it. So if one of us says something, what up, Jen?
You're going to teach me how to do that.
What, the shorts or the?
There's parts of it, a lot of the conversations I would just like to put it out there, but I don't know how to do that.
Oh, it's easy.
We'll sit down. We'll go off air one night, and we're going to do a little tutorial for everybody so we can do it. Matter of fact, I think we'll do one night this week. We'll sit down, the 3 or 4 of us, however many want to get together. We'll go through it ourselves so we know how to do it. And then maybe next week on the show,
We'll do a live stream demonstration of it.
we'll do a live stream demonstration on how you could extract a part of the show and share it with your friends and family and interested parties or people you just want to piss off.
Yeah, it's easy to do. It's a
We
couple ways
like
to do it.
pissing people off. It's kind of what we do.
Shadow Bounty, Shadow Bounty, put me on your government watch list, please.
Already there.
I'm
Already
trying to
there.
find, I'm trying to
Same
find one
here.
I'm not on.
I know that we talk not just about American stuff, but we talk about overseas stuff. And
Yeah.
I want to hit back on Agent Black. Mike, our boss, said that he had heard the story. I don't know if you,
Yeah.
well, Frank, I know you said that you've been out of the loop this week. I don't know if Michael heard it. About the young autistic lady that it took 7 UK cops to arrest her for calling a officer that told her that she looked like a lesbian.
No. Wait a minute. She was a drunk 16-year-old autistic girl, and she said, "You look like my lesbian aunt, grandmother, my nana." So she says, "You look like my lesbian nana," who happens to be a lesbian that's married to a
And
woman.
apparently the Agent Black can fill us in some more if he's still on. Apparently there's a law over there that you can't call somebody a lesbian, or you can't refer to them anything to do with that TQIA plus, references, or seven officers.
Yeah. And all the while, the family is screaming, she's autistic. She was at the time she had a cubby hole that she was basically barricading herself away from everyone else because she didn't want to be touched. She was terrified of the cops. As the cops are grabbing her, she's screaming bloody murder. They're dragging her on the ground. The female cop, who was called looking like her lesbian grandmother, is just standing on the side going, just watching the whole thing, guaranteeing that even though the girl was autistic, even though the girl was drunk, because she dared to say that, she has to go to jail. No matter what. Nothing else mattered. She has to go to jail. By the way, the city that this was taking place in which I believe is North Leeds, I believe it was, in the United Kingdom, it has 172% higher violent crime than the entire UK. 172% more. 41.5% of the crimes, arrests in that city are violent crimes. And they sent out 7 cops, not dealing with the other violent crimes going on, to deal with one drunk autistic girl who said, "You look like my grandma."
We can laugh all we want, but it's coming here.
Oh, it's already here. It's already here.
Yeah, it's definitely already here, because you can't tell a trans person they're not trans.
I've
Or they're
made
not
reference.
female. You can't tell a drag queen that it's inappropriate for them to let children touch their boobs and to have, it's disgusting.
I've already made reference to this. Okay. Ayn Rand basically has a statement in her book, okay, that the biggest reasons why we make laws is so that the right people break those laws.
That's one way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. But there's more to it than that. I've also referenced that one out of 20 people incarcerated in the United States right now is completely innocent of the charges that they are being incarcerated for.
I would probably think the number is even higher than that.
Okay, that's estimate. That's the estimate
Depends.
right now. They
Depends.
estimate as much as 5% of all people incarcerated right now
Well,
are there for crimes that they did not commit.
all right. Well, no, let's go a little further than that, Mike. Let's go just a little further than this to try and appease Voss a little, because he's a little. I can see the claim is ringing dubious.
Yes,
according to him.
because
All right,
there's
so
a lot of people guilty of a lot of crimes.
All right, so let me make this a little clearer. There are people in jail serving time for crimes they should have not been convicted of.
I agree with that.
Okay,
I agree with
Not-
that.
and in that we can encompass the people that are both innocent of the crime in which they were charged, and people that should have never been charged with a crime because the crime they were being charged with was bullshit to begin with.
And I agree with that. Absolutely.
Now,
Now, if we look at those numbers, if we look at how many laws that people are serving time for that they shouldn't be serving time for, I would say that we probably have an incarceration rate somewhere around 30 to 40%
Oh,
that are
yeah.
justified, especially
you
when
start getting there, and
laws, traffic laws, and all the rest of that.
you're
shit.
probably getting closer to 50%.
I don't know if I'd go that high, but I definitely agree with Frank that 30 to 40.
Larry said it last week. One of the 4 things that America does, aside from killing people, is incarcerating people.
I love Larry, but Larry and I disagree with that in person as well as professionally.
All right, let me ask you a question.
yeah.
Should a guy who hasn't paid his child support go to jail?
I would say no, but I can see the case why someone would say yes.
You could see the case why somebody could say yes, but let me ask you a question. Well, a man who doesn't pay his child support sits in a jail cell.
Mhm.
How is his
He
child
earns no
support
income. I
being
understand
paid?
that. I
How's he gonna
understand.
get
I understand.
cannot-
As somebody who had to deal with a father who was negligent on his child support for many years, no. I want him to earn that money to pay my house.
Putting
I
somebody
understand.
in jail for a financial crime, which you might not even say is a crime, because let's face it, child support, what is it, alimony? Yeah, alimony. Those are all civil judgments.
Yes.
Those are civil judgments. You should not be incarcerated for a civil judgment, especially if you are supposed to be making restitution on a civil judgment. You are being incarcerated and being denied the ability to make the restitution because the state has decided to take away your ability to make the restitution, making it twice as bad as it was originally. So you get a guy defrauds the federal government $10,000-$15,000 on his taxes. They put him in jail for 3 years. Well, how the hell is he supposed to pay the money back? If
No,
he just took 3 years of his life and now he comes out and he can't get a friggin' job to pay the money back.
Wait a minute. I understand that. And yes, I could see that. But the reason why you're going to incarcerate someone for that is meant as the example and preventative, trying to stop others from making that same financial choice. But I want to address something different.
But that's where you come in with fines.
Now, I understand, but again,
Something like that. You don't decide to say you owe X amount of dollars, so we're going to deny you your ability to work to pay that money back, and then on top of that, we are going to then task the rest of the people, the tax-paying populace, to now have to fund you while you are in jail to the tune of $450 a day, because that's what it costs to keep the average inmate in jail.
I understand.
I'm paying $450 a day to keep you in jail because you owe a couple of $1,000s for something.
Right.
It's bullshit.
I do understand the argument. As I said from the very start, I can understand that, but I understand the reason. I said no, but I understand the reason why some would say They need that. I still do. The arguments they make, and again, I didn't say I agree with it. I said I understand it. Why people are saying that this is the example and it's meant to put greater pressure on others to comply. And yes, fines could be a better answer. I don't disagree with that. But again, there are other arguments that are made, not by me, but others that are out there that are compelling, and they have their reasons for it. I won't get into that at the moment because, again, not my argument, not my fight. I don't necessarily disagree with you, Frank. But
Okay,
what I do disagree with
I have one
is this
for
chart.
you.
I disagree
hold
with the
on.
chart.
Hold on a second.
I disagree with that chart. It's wrong.
How's it wrong?
Okay, you're looking at the top 10 countries. There's a couple of factors in this in terms of the differences of population, culture, the mix of cultures. You're looking at countries with the most people in prison, but how many people as a percentage of that population are actually in prison? How many people disappear
That's what that
in those
629
cities?
is. That's
Well-
629 per 100,000.
Okay, I don't like per 100,000. I like absolute numbers because you can fudge those numbers. But on top of that, how many people, as an example, in China, they don't put you in prison, they put you in a gulag and you disappear forever. We're not counting those people. A lot of these countries aren't giving us accurate numbers. You think you got accurate numbers in Rwanda or in Brazil? In India, there's an entire class of people in India that don't count. They're the untouchables. They are ignored completely in all data coming out of India. This list is inappropriate and inaccurate on several levels, and it is there meant to bias people against the United States. It's like saying the United States is the country that we always hear this, that we're the most mass shootings. That
Okay,
isn't true. We're number 15.
Let's say
Go ahead.
that each one of these countries is higher than us.
Yeah. Well, some of them are. Like
Where
Iran.
are the other first world countries? Where's England at?
England has,
Where's
well,
Sweden?
Sweden
Where's
is,
Canada?
there's certain problems. Well, Sweden, which is homogenous, has a very different culture and they deal with their crimes in a different way.
Where's Germany?
Same thing. Same thing in Germany, same thing with France, same thing with England. You're talking
Okay.
about mostly
My
homogenous
point
countries.
is, the United States has way too many laws
Yeah,
that put people in prison.
yeah.
We're supposed to be the freest country in the world, but yet we have. Okay, let's like you were pointing out. Let's say that all these top 10 are actually higher than the United States. Okay, we're still higher than most other countries in the world.
Well, again, that depends on how you're counting, because we also happen to have the entire landmass of England would fit inside of Texas 3 or 4 times over. We have a population, all of Germany would fit in Texas.
And that is
population.
where you get the numbers like 629 per 100,000. That is
Yeah. But that is also inaccurate because you're talking about cities, because you're looking at New York City, LA, Chicago, Detroit.
no, that's
When you start
629 per 100,000 people across the United States.
Yeah, but that's not consistent.
How's that
across
not
the-
accurate?
Because in Kansas doesn't have the same rate of incarceration as in
That's
Chicago.
the United States as a whole.
I understand that, but you can't
Okay, so
look
you
at
take
it as
the
a whole.
population of 330 million
Yeah, but we don't
and
have
figure out.
No, hear me out. Because the disparities are not uniform across America. You will not get the same disparity in Wisconsin or in Kansas or in
If you're taking
Florida.
the United States population as a whole,
Well, that's one of my problems. We can't. The United States is not homogenous either in culture or in populations or in population density. So we have areas with cultures and centers that are non-homogeneous, that are in constant conflict, that have higher than normal numbers that skew every other number. It's like saying, it's like looking at violent crime in the United States. One of the reasons why we have such high incarceration rates. Well, that's because of Chicago. If you took out Chicago and you took out Detroit, just those two, the United States, the crime in the United States, violent crime in the United States drops by about 20%. That's just
Are
two
they still in the
things.
United States?
I understand, but it's not
Are they
homogenous.
still
It's not
part of the United
uniform.
States?
Yeah, but it's not uniform. We don't have that
It
same
doesn't
violent
matter if it's
crime.
uniform or not. It's the United States.
But do you understand my point, Mike? I
And
understand
it's
the United
11:01,
States.
ladies and gentlemen. It's 11:01. 11:01.
I'm making I think people can see my point. It's not fair and it's not uniform to look at a nation as large a landmass, the number 3 largest landmass, the number 5 largest population, with such disparities, and we have centers, concentrations of aberrations that skew our numbers. And again, I point to, we can look at Detroit, Baltimore,
All right.
Chicago, New York City, LA,
Let me just bring this up.
Seattle.
Let me bring this up so I could settle your argument for just a moment, okay? Because I want to cover at least one more topic before we go on for the rest of the night, because I'm going to be getting out of here shortly.
Okay, fair
Vass,
enough.
what number is this?
Well, it should be a 6, but you're going to tell me it's a 9.
Right. Marshall, what number is this?
It's an 8.
All right. Whether it's this or it's this, you're both seeing the same thing. You're just seeing it from a different side. Okay? It's the same. Both of your arguments have validity to them. The problem with America right now, the reason why our numbers are the way they are, is because the government has abused the people, have written laws that are unconstitutional, and have taken our public prison system
And that was my
to a
point.
private prison system that's based on profit. So when you have those things that happen, you wind up with a perfect storm that makes more sense to incarcerate people than it is for them to actually make restitution in the civil capacity. And that's when you have people that are in jail for stupid shit. You have people in jail right now, languishing in jail, serving 30 and 40 years, that are coming upon the end of their sentence, that are going to be released at the same time as a guy who committed the same exact crime 6 months ago is being released on the same day.
Yeah.
So you have disparities in the way people get sentenced. You have disparities in how they get incarcerated. You have disparities in how they're treated as far as their race, religion, ethnicity, sexuality, and every other damn metric we can put under the sun. The United States prison system is screwed. Our laws are screwed. Our entire Constitution is, Michael, if we put it into a brochure, how many 8.5 by 11s does a Constitution fit on? 6 pages front and back?
Yeah.
How many laws do we have in this country? 860,000.
Yeah.
Oh, you got right.
There's 147,000 freaking gun laws. 147,000 gun laws. And we have a Constitution
That isn't
fits on 6 pages.
accounting for the state or municipal laws.
All right, right. So when we look at those numbers and we wind up why everything is so screwed up, get rid of all the rest of this shit, get back to the original 6 pages, let Americans be Americans, and let's get on with our fucking lives. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way the founders intended it to be. Now, Jan wanted to come in with one last thing for the night. You had one more thing you wanted to throw in there?
Yeah, I wanted one more thing. I thought it was important to talk about. I don't know if you guys saw my tweet to Liberty First Foundation, because I thought it would be an interesting topic to talk about with that I saw, and I'll go into that in a second. Did you guys see that today Garland appointed a special counsel to Hunter's case? And do you know who that special counsel was?
Yeah, the same guy that's been investigating them.
Weiss. Yeah. And then I saw something on Twitter, and I thought it would be a good conversation, if it is right, that it is illegal to put him in as special counsel because he's the AG.
It's illegal because he's the AG? You mean the AG assigned him, or because?
If you look at the tweet, can you pull the tweet up?
I'm trying to.
I mean, if you're going to do a special counsel, honestly, I believe that it should be somebody that hasn't been involved with the case at all.
Well, it said it had to be somebody outside the government. This thing, it was somebody was posting a book that they had opened, and in it was talking about had to be out of the government. It had to be this type person. I mean, number one, it worries me that they appointed him the AG or the special counsel, because this man has been doing all this investigation anyway. He's the one that helped come up with the plea deal that was going to give him immunity.
Yeah, here's the tweet, Jen. I pulled it up for you. Unfortunately, I don't have the audio going with it. I'm not technically proficient enough to understand that it was a tweet originally from Chuck Costello about whom shall be appointed special counsel for such a thing. And I believe what you're probably trying to say is there's some sort of conflict of interest in it, that Garland chose somebody who should not be doing it because of a conflict of interest.
Yeah, and with as knowledgeable as you guys are on stuff, I mean, you're way more knowledgeable than me. I thought it would be an interesting topic, because if it is illegal, it should be out there that it's illegal.
Well, again, even if it's illegal, what are we going to do? Complain to the Attorney General?
Claim to the government.
Yeah, Mr. Attorney General, you just did something illegal. Should you have the attorney? And we've investigated ourselves and found we've done nothing wrong. That's what you'll get.
Well, we know that's pretty much what's going to happen. I mean, the way I look at it, when I saw that he came out and appointed him, the first thing I thought of was, well, you appointed the man that was investigating him for the last 3 years, that they only came up, that he let statute of limitations go. He came up and helped with the plea deal to give him immunity.
Well,
it's going to go nowhere.
All right, here's the thing. We had Hunter's business partner go in and testify to Congress last week. Pretty much spilled the beans on every single thing that they could possibly imagine. The bribery numbers just keep going up and up and up and up and up every time you turn around. ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, every one of the other alphabet organizations provided.
I'll claim that the testimony proved that Biden wasn't involved.
Right. They provided exactly 0 minutes coverage of that story. 0 minutes coverage of that story. The woman who said she saw a shape-shifting alien on an airplane was covered for no less than 6 minutes on each of the networks.
Yeah.
Okay. Just let's put that into perspective. And at the same time, the January 6th Commission knowingly and deliberately ordered that every bit of evidence that they obtained from the course of their investigation be destroyed, even though they were legally bound to preserve any and all records as a matter of public record, as a matter of transparency, and as a matter of having to go to the Library of Congress.
Well, Congress ordered them to hold everything.
Right.
Whatever committee it is.
Right. And they decided that it was in their best interest, not the people's best interest, their best interest, to destroy all of the documentation that they had gathered. I wonder if they wiped it down with a cloth. Because it seems every time a Democrat or a leftist is ordered to preserve evidence, they destroy it.
Quickly, yes.
And nothing happens to them. Nothing ever happens to them.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole thing, okay? And we're seeing more and more corruption at all levels of government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's getting worse and worse. Okay, that hip hop thing, $5 million. Honestly, that's a piddly amount to most of those hip hop stars. I mean, any one of them could have. That's chump change to them.
No,
To do that hip hop museum. Okay, but here we have the federal government wasting that money. Okay, no. Here's what we got going on. The federal government funneled $5 million into this supposed hip hop museum that's going to end up in somebody's pocket, just like cultural.
And will cost more than $5 million, guaranteed.
Mm-hmm. Just like Holchel and her $500,000 affordable housing.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, $500,000 housing units. Okay, how's that affordable housing? Well, I'll tell you how it's affordable housing. Those houses are going to probably cost $125,000, and the remainder is going to go in somebody's pockets.
that makes that latte more affordable.
Okay, I mean Buffalo Billions. Look at that. Okay, I mean corruption is across this country and it's rampant, and it's every day, and nobody's getting nailed on it. Okay, why? Because we the people aren't demanding it. Because we the people are sitting around, it doesn't bother me, so why should I get involved?
Well, deflation of the dollar is one good reason, but no one thinks about that. That's numbers, it's math, and they hate it.
No, because too many people are getting into the latest damn hip hop TikTok craze, and they're more concerned with that than they are about what's controlling their damn lives.
I got kicked off TikTok because I always posted political.
Well, I'm sitting there watching. I watch a lot of the YouTube shorts and a lot of that stuff that come up, and I'm on Instagram because I'm trying to promote us a little bit there too. And I'm looking at every time I see like something with a gun video, somewhere in a video there's a gun that shows up, they blur the gun, the image of the gun. If there's a knife, they blur the image of the gun of the knife. If somebody uses certain words, they bleep words that aren't curses, because the algorithms have gotten so ridiculous now, where what you will be able to share and what you'll be able to view and watch have gotten so ridiculous. I watched the video. A prosecutor was talking about a rape case.
He can't say the word rape.
He can't say the word rape.
Yeah.
They don't beep it because the beep triggers the algorithm into thinking that there's a curse. So they omit the sound completely.
Yeah.
So they
do
just
that on Facebook a lot now.
Right. They're doing it on. This is how ridiculous it has gotten, and how ridiculous we're letting it.
But you can talk about your sexual attraction to a minor. You can talk about how appropriate it is to mutilate a child at 6 years old. You can talk about how a drag queen can go out there and, as I said earlier, let a child come up to them and touch their fake boobs and this and that. You can go to a pride parade and watch the men run around naked. And that's all shown on social media.
Yeah, that's all fine, but you try and talk, but that's because those are all left-leaning issues that they approve of. You can always talk the approved message. It's when you're ever consider the unapproved message, well, now you need to be punished because you're different.
All right, listen, before we go, I just want to, I was thinking about something that I saw. What's this?
What is that?
Okay. Are you ready?
No, I'm not. But what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do to me here?
Okay, let's see if I can actually get this.
Referring to your rights.
Start over.
My son identifies as a cat, and his school is not taking that seriously, and I am honestly planning on suing them.
Wait a minute. Okay, pause it.
I saw a report the other day that there's actually a school that has litter boxes in their bathroom, and they oh my
That
god,
story is an exaggeration, I believe.
they have
They have the little cat ball thing.
Yeah, the cat things
Yeah,
that they
toy.
can sit on. They have in our schools.
Okay, that's an exaggeration because I know that story. They don't have litter. That's the argument, but the argument that's being made, and this is where people missed it. The argument's being made. Well, if they're a cat, then why don't you teach that kid to? They can't go to the bathroom. They need a litter box. And if we're going to seriously treat them like cats, then they need to be using litter boxes. And do we really want to see that with a human being? They're not using the litter boxes, so obviously they're not a cat. So why are we going through this farce?
If they're a cat, why are they in school?
Well, that's the other thing.
Animals don't learn.
Hey, do you remember months ago, I said we need a parent who's got a kid who's allergic to cats. We need that parent to go to school and sue the friggin' school district because the kid is allergic to a cat and force the hand of the schools to start admitting, no, these kids are not what they say they are. They have a mental disorder, or at least we're playing into it. And with that, I'm gonna share something real quick because I thought about this. I'm gonna share this. This is something I want Americans to
The one
think.
about lions.
Audio comes through.
Yeah. It is lion. He's the king of the jungle.
Do you hear that
Huge
audio?
mane of the-
Yeah.
Yes.
He's laying down under a tree in the middle of Africa. He's so big, so hot.
You should pause it.
He doesn't want to move. Now, there's a lion.
Okay, it's paused.
You got to pause it every 9 seconds so that we can either comment on it or allow people to reflect on it. Otherwise, the video gets killed.
Well, you have to. All right. Well, I'll try and pause it, but I want you to just pay attention to it.
I am paying attention, but again.
All right. I'm playing.
Lion comes, they start messing with him. Biting his tail, biting his ears. He doesn't do anything. The lioness, she starts messing with him, coming over, making
Goddamn buffering.
trouble. Still, nothing. Now, the other animals, they notice this, and they start to move in. The jackals, hyenas,
Uh-oh.
they're barking at him, laughing at him. They nip his toes and eat the food that's in his domain. They do this, and they get closer and closer and bolder, till one day, that lion gets up and tears the shit out of everybody. Raises the wind, eats everything in his path. Because every once in a while, the lion has to show the jackals who he is.
Well, that sounds just like I love Christopher Walken. I love Christopher Walken.
This is where we are in America right now. The American people are the lions, and we have been laying there in the sun, and we have allowed the jackals to nip at us, to bite us, to take our resources, to take our food, to do everything we have to do. The American people have got to show the jackals who we are. And we've got to stand together, get up, and put these sons of bitches back in their place. And their place in most cases is home and not representing us.
But yet we have people like this. Okay, hold on a second.
I got to get the Jeopardy theme song for moments like this.
Oh God.
Oh wait, no, that would be copyright infringement.
Yeah.
Maybe if I play it in
The
reverse.
way they play those rules are just ridiculous.
Anna's in 2 minutes. You're gonna die of radiation poisoning.
Here's a fun fact. Did you know that if every child in the world knows a piece of useful information like this, it will increase the rate in which we are adopting idiocracy as the standard for living?
Yeah. Lots of stupid. There's lots of stupid out there. Lots of stupid. And they think it's real.
And this is our future.
I'm gonna get ready to sign off out of here real quick, but I just wanna
Oh yeah.
I wanna circle back real quick. Oh, I'm a circle back girl. I'm like Jen Psaki. Or whatever the hell her name is.
Saki. Yep.
Yeah, we were talking about your first story tonight, Mike,
Yeah.
about the baby.
Yes.
And we know that the reason why that's not going to get the traction that it's going to get is because it's all going to come down to the fact of when does life begin.
Yeah.
And I sat and I thought about this a while back, and I came up with something to kind of explain my theory as far as when life begins. And maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but it's something that a lot of people can think about if they think about my presentation on it real quickly.
Okay.
If I have hydrogen and I have oxygen, they're two separate things, right?
Right.
If I take one of one and two of another and I put them together, an electrical spark takes place, and I have created what?
Water, of course.
Water.
H2O. Dihydride.
Dihydrogen monoxide.
Yeah.
Dihydrogen monoxide.
Yeah.
I have H2O. Okay.
Dihydric oxide.
Yeah.
If I have H2O, that's the chemical formula for water. I've created water.
Mm-hmm.
If I take this water and I leave it at room temperature, what's the chemical formula?
Still water.
Dihydric oxide.
If I put it and I subject it to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius,
Still water.
if I boil this,
Still water.
the steam, if the steam travels into the atmosphere and forms a cloud,
Nothing's changing. Yeah, it's still water. These are just different forms of the same thing.
when the cloud ruptures and it comes back down as rain, it's still water. No matter what you do to water, even if you consume it, it's still water. Doesn't matter what you do. The only thing that you can do to take water and make it not water anymore is to put an electrical charge to it and separate it back into its basic components of hydrogen and oxygen.
Or add something to it.
I get your point. Yeah.
Even if you add something to it, it's still water. It's just
No, if you do
you'll have
chemical reactions, it does change it.
Yeah, but the point, I understand Frank's point.
is,
But I do. Right.
if you change water to the point where it's not water, say it's heavy water, which is H3O,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like heavy water, it's still a form of water. If I were to feed water to my plants and grow grapes and turn it into wine, there's still water in the wine. The H2O component is still there. No matter what you do to it, the water is still in there. You can still extract the H2O out of whatever you turned it into, and it would still be water. Once you combine something, once you combine one thing and another thing, it doesn't matter what phase the water is in, it's always water. And when you have the spark of life between one cell and another cell form, and that spark, the same spark that created the water is the same spark that creates the life. Once you've created the life, It's life. And it doesn't matter what stage of life it is, whether it's an embryo, a fetus, a newborn baby, or a human being. It's not until the spark of life leaves that you no longer have it. So just for those people that wonder when life begins, it's at the spark. It has nothing to do with the breath. Because if you found an organism on Mars that's devoid of oxygen, it would be considered life. When there's laws that will put you in prison for 10 years for destroying a fertilized eagle egg, it's because they recognize it as life. Why would it be different in humans if it's not different for bacteria? If it's not different for germs?
It goes back to Voss's point on all that abortion issue. Until we can absolutely define and not necessarily get rid of, because I believe there are circumstances for abortion.
Yeah, most people do.
Right. Well,
if we stop using birth control as this population control, which is basically what they made it for, and if we stop using it as birth control, which is where it is now.
The thing about it is that you have people that refuse to justify their belief. But if you can't come together on a basic premise and understand when life actually begins, you can't have that other discussion. Once you know and once you prove, and science, I'm pretty certain can do it, can prove when life actually exists and begins, okay, then make your argument based on your morality. At what point is it okay, and is it no longer okay, to put an end to that life? The people on that side of the argument, that the reason why that doctor will never see a day in prison, and why you have people that can shoot a pregnant woman during the commission of a mugging, ending the life of the unborn child, and not be charged with murder, is because that nobody is brave enough to actually come out and make a unified decision as to when life actually begins. Because once you make the determination as to when life begins, it makes it harder for you to justify terminating it out of convenience's sake versus out of what's necessary. A necessitated termination is much different than a convenience. And because people don't want to give up they don't want to make that slightest bit of an acquiescence, because then it takes away their "this is my right" argument and turns it into having to put the moral onus back on that person to justify why it's okay. And they don't want to make the moral argument as to why.
Well, the answer is they want it.
Because they don't want to make the argument as to when. When does it begin? Because if you can make the argument for when it begins, then you have to be able to make the argument as to why you should be able to destroy it. And they don't want to do that because they don't have the moral ground to stand on. And if you did, then maybe you could have that honest discussion. But until then, there's never going to be an honest discussion about it, and you will have situations like this doctor will go unanswered.
When you do try to have, like, I don't know if you guys know this about me. I don't know if this is something I ever told you guys about me. I was molested when I was younger, and I got pregnant. I had the child. Then raising, was forced to give him up. But when I talk to people about the abortion issue, it really affects me, because reasons I just stated. I feel that abortion was brought into this country first and majorly as a population control, and now it's become birth control. You spread your legs and you're a willing participant, You should not have it. You should not be allowed to have the abortion. Period. I'm sorry. That's the way I feel. You chose to have unprotected sex. You understood the consequences. Well, now you got to deal with the consequences. That's the world we live in. If you do something, whether it be positive or whether it be negative, you deal with what the outcome is. I have literally had people tell me, because I had my child, even though, like I said, I was molested, and there's a whole story beyond that, that that I didn't do the right thing.
What?
Like, who are you to tell me if I did the right thing or not? It was my choice. Do I believe that women who have been raped, women who have been molested, yes, we should have that choice.
Yes.
But if I choose to have the child, you can't default me for that.
No. It's insulting for someone to say that.
My opinion doesn't matter because I had that child. And these are conversations that I actually have with people.
I can't imagine that someone would be ballsy enough to say something that stupid to you. That's just insane. But then again, look at the way they have the political arguments arranged now. You have to agree.
I've been having these conversations for like 10, 15 years before we went to where we are today. I mean, yes, it's worse today, but that's why I said, I believe utmost that if there's an issue, if there's a major medical issue which will either end the mother's life or the child's life, then yes, the abortion should be warranted. Other than that, shut the hell up, because it should be the mother who was raped or molested who should be the only person with the say so.
And most, and pretty much all, in fact, as far as I'm aware, every state agrees with you, Jan. At the minimum, every state agrees with you on that. And then there are states like New York, California, that go to and take that to the extreme and go, well, then late-term abortion at the moment of birth, or like Governor Northam, post-birth abortion are all acceptable. And that's the problem. They've taken this, they've gone from a unique and extreme situation and applied this to everyday life and said, it's all the same thing. It's like, no, it's not. But they don't appreciate that, and they don't want to have that conversation because they want it, and wants, their feelings are more important than any fact or any argument, discussion, debate. It doesn't matter. They feel, therefore it must be. And that's one of the most destructive elements of our government going forward. We're allowing feelings to dominate over every other aspect without question, without discussion, and it's having negative impacts on everyone. And this case and the abortion issue overall, and this doctor, this case in Atlanta, the decapitation of a child, is just another outreach, another consequence of that feeling dominated, feel good politics. It's really sad, and it upsets me. It really upsets me, and I'm very sorry, Jan, that you had to have that negative experience. But I respect and honor the choices you made, which were obviously difficult. But thank you for making them because you wanted to.
And thank you for sharing.
Well, in all honesty, I couldn't abort. There was a living thing growing inside of me. It was tough because of knowing who molested me, but I couldn't abort. I could not terminate that child's life because it did not make the mistake.
Here's
People don't grasp that concept. The child should not be punished for the consequences that you now have to deal with because of what happened.
And here's my thoughts on that. Okay. With the exception of molestation and rape, which both are crimes, criminal acts. Okay. I believe that if either the father or the mother decide that they want that child to be born, then that child should absolutely be born.
Well, and that's part of the problem.
Without-
That's the problem nowadays too. The man wants the child. The woman says, "My body, my choice."
Mhm. And
And he gets screwed because the courts go, well, she's the one carrying it. She's the one this. It's her right.
mhm. and that to me is absolutely wrong.
And then there's
If we are going to keep abortion in some shape or form, I believe that the father should, in instances where it was not because due to a criminal act,
Consensual. When
then
it's
the father,
consensual.
then the father should have a right to say, be part of that discussion. And if either one of them decide that they want that child to be born, then the child needs to be born. Plain and simple.
There's also the
Now-
flip side. There's the flip side to the argument too. Real quick, I'm just going to drop this in before I say goodnight. As long as you don't allow a father to have a say in the birth of the child, and they say, well, it's between the woman and her doctor. It's the woman's body, and the father doesn't have a say. Wouldn't it be kind of fair for the father to say, well, I don't want the kid. She wants the kid, but I don't want the kid. So is there a way that I could sign away that I don't have any sort of financial obligation?
There is. They can do
They
that.
do that now.
They can do that.
Well, they do it because they just do it. But if I think if more fathers started making the case that they didn't want to be financially liable for the kid, you might have a lot more women that say, well, if
You
I'm
actually
interested,
cannot sign away your financial liabilities for the child. You can sign away your parental rights to the child,
parental rights, but not
you
your financial
cannot sign away your financial responsibility for the child.
I think that either way, I think that's just ridiculous. It's
right. But just say, but it's the flip side of the argument. If
it
if
is.
the husband if the guy wants the kid and the woman doesn't, everything is fine. Everything's peachy. He has no legal basis. He can't say anything. What say you about the life of the child? But if the father doesn't want the kid and the woman does, well, if she doesn't want the financial obligation of having a child, why does the father have to have the financial obligation of having the child?
They're not being morally consistent or honest.
Right, and that's look, these are all very uncomfortable. And I'm not saying that anybody should be able to walk away from a kid and not be responsible for it. That's not what I'm saying.
Again, but
What I'm saying is, if you're going to make arguments, let's make them consistently, evenly across all boards.
They don't want to have that.
But people don't want to have those discussions because every time you have the discussion, it weakens the point of view of the people that would rather eliminate the kid altogether.
Yeah.
And as long as there's people that have the grand idea that says we need to limit the population, that the human weeds need not grow, to quote Margaret Sanger.
Yeah.
As long as that agenda is out there, and as long as the agenda that most of these facilities are in poor neighborhoods, minority neighborhoods, and as long as they can think that there's not too many people that we want to have too many of.
And as long as we have the belief that humans are destroying the planet,
yeah,
and responsible for climate change,
these are all. Look, it's an evil world. It's an evil world, and the problem is, I can debate any argument based on anything. I don't care what it is because I'm pretty willing to vocalize my true opinion on anything. the problem is all of these special interest groups, they don't want to. When Planned Parenthood is called Planned Parenthood, it's pretty obvious that they don't want to be honest in their reasoning for their existence. Because Planned Parenthood wouldn't exist if people planned on being parents.
Yes.
Listen, I'm gonna sign
At
off.
Agent Black, we're actually getting ready to sign off.
Yeah.
Thank you for staying so long.
Agent
We
brother,
do
thank
appreciate
you so
it.
much across the pond. Listen, we pray for you guys over there all the time. We really do. You know, the colonists would at some point like to bring some of our brethren back into the fold and give you the freedoms that we should all be enjoying. So we pray for you, brother. We really do. Oh, speaking of which, what the hell are they? Oh, I can't find them. I just had them here. Damn it.
What's yours?
Agent Black, check it out. Bolts for my crossbow.
Oh.
Say bolts for my crossbow. I was saving these, waiting for one of my friends from Great Britain to come back. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. Jan,
All right.
Mike, Vass, love you guys. Have a good night. I'll let you guys sign up. I'm gonna do mine. As always, be safe and shoot straight. Tell us how to join our organization and how they can win a gun, Mike. I'm out of here.
Okay.
Have a great night, Frank.
Love you, Frank.
Love you guys too.
Okay, with that, I am going to go ahead and start winding the show down. Okay.
Yeah.
As you already know, or most of you know, we are in the middle of our membership drive for 2023. In fact, 2023 is rapidly drawing to a close, and we are working on hitting a target of 250 new members. We aren't there yet, guys. We need your help to push us across that threshold. And once we do hit that target, we will be giving away a custom Henry Golden Boy rifle to one of those 250 new members. Now, we are working on hitting that target, and each new membership does help us. It helps us get the word out. It helps us to spread the message of freedom, of liberty. Okay. As most of you know, I am a constitutionalist. I could give a shit less about the Republican Party or the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't care. In fact, I honestly don't believe we should have parties in the United States, but inevitably we are going to have parties. That's the nature of politics, because you're always going to have opposing viewpoints. So that being said, I want us to remain constitutional. Okay, I believe that there is room when we back the Constitution for multiple sides of issues. Okay, but we do just need to remain constitutional in our movement throughout whatever issues and whatever side of issues we are on. So that being said, that's what we are here to promote. We're here to promote open dialogue. We're here to promote open discussion, but we're also here to uphold, educate, and preserve the Constitution as best we can. And that's our purpose. That's what we try to do here every week with our live stream. And we want to get into more and more venues. But in order for us to do that, we need to have funding. Our funds only stretch so far. And for those of you that have joined, we do appreciate it. Beyond words, we appreciate it. But we still need to spread the message. We need to get across that threshold. Okay, that will give us a start. And we pick that number for a reason, because that does help us get the ball rolling. So we are looking forward to hitting that target. We've only got a few months left to hit it, and hopefully we will before the end of the year. But we need your help. So with that, I want to say thank you to everybody that joined us in the chat. I want to thank all of our viewers. Hit that like button, hit that share button, subscribe. Okay. And if you're catching us after the live, join in the comments. You can leave comments even if we're not live. We will respond to them. Okay. If we don't respond to them, just say hi. Okay. We want this conversation to go on. We talked about a lot of things that we need to have discussions on. We touch on stuff every week. Okay. Keep the conversation going. Okay, with that, we will see you next week. We're here every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And with that, you guys have a great week. Thank you.
Right.
Night, everyone.